This is the Indian government's version of what a person is who is responsible for the assassination of a person who is sanctioning the killings of thousands of people. If Jagtar Singh Hawara and his friends did not cause this assassination, possibly a lot of us would not be in this room today. Think about it that way. Now compare this to when he is elected as Jathedar, when he is elected leader of the Sikh nation. Look at the crowd's reaction. So he's elected right there. That in itself is a microcosm of how Sikhs exist in India. On one hand, the Indian government is saying, doshi, terrorist, killer. On the other end, when he's elected to lead the Sikh nation, that is the Sangat's reaction. So that is a microcosm of how Sikhs exist in India even today. That video you just saw was from 2015. And I talk about, these illegal killings, and I talk about that whole time period. Here's one of the stories I thought was very nicely put, very nicely illustrated. My volume is at full, but I hope you guys can hear it. Just some minor illustrations. He said, we don't even want to know if you've killed our family member or not. We just want his or her body back so we can cremate them. This is the story of thousands and thousands of Sikh mothers, fathers, brothers, wives, sons, daughters of Punjab. That is the existence they are living. Tenth grader. So many stories. So many stories like this exist. And keep in mind, this is a very macro level. This is a few steps removed. This is just telling you the outcome. This is not telling you why. A big reason why I figured that coexistence has become difficult. I think I have it in a post somewhere. Here we go, just Zikarada again, just real quick. India killed him for challenging the darkness. He found so many bodies. Police officers is quoted as saying, "We're not going to let the fish go hungry." They picked him up, tortured him, killed him, threw his body in a canal. And if you see these tweets here, this is Priyanka Chopra, who we all know to be in Quantico and who we all know to be this, pioneer from Bollywood to Hollywood. She's saying, "Thank you for restoring peace to Punjab." And this is the narrative that the world has been fed. That people like KP Gill, Rishi Kapoor, what a man, what a personality, what a do-gooder. KPS Gill Sahab Rabra Ka Sat Sri Akal. Thank you for doing what you did. Thank you for killing thousands and thousands of innocent people. Is it a surprise at all that Bollywood is completely absent when a Kangana Ranaut says, we need Indira Gandhi back. We need the same treatment of Sikhs. We need them to be attacked and killed. We need another genocide. And Bollywood is completely silent. It's not a surprise because this is the narrative that they've been fed. Speak up against Narendra Modi. Speak up against the Indian government and you'll be put in jail. And this is not a US jail where you get guaranteed 3 meals a day. People are advocating for your rights. They're watching out. They're making sure you're hygienic. This is in India where yesterday Jagtar Singh Hawara was admitted to a hospital, and due to the surgery that was required, he ended up urinating on his bed, and the Indian government ambulances, the police officials, didn't have the sense of mind to change the bedding that he was on. So he is laying in that right now. And this is the story of December 2nd, 2021. This is the condition that Sikhs continue to be subject to. So continue to ask yourself as I go through this presentation, was it a 1984 Sikh genocide? Or is it happening right now as well? And should we more accurately talk about it as an ongoing Sikh genocide? Now, let's fast forward. Let's skip from the 2000s to the 2021s. Let's pretend that there was no oppression there. Keep in mind, I am not talking about thousands and thousands of cases where our people, like Jagtar Singh Hawara, remain in Indian prison. His existence as becoming the leader of the Sikh nation and being in an Indian prison even today is a microcosm of how Sikhs exist in India. So Byanta was killing people, he was sanctioning them, fake encounters were popular. There was a lot of villages, if you talk to the people of Punjab today, where they didn't have a male for their daughters to marry. There were whole villages for years at a time where they said, because typically in Punjab they married within villages, so they said, we don't have another male for our daughter to marry because the Indian government has picked all of them up and killed them. This is not ancient history to us. We're talking about 20, 25 years old. Some of us may have been alive when these things were happening. So we see the faces of the people. Balwant Singh Rajwana, in jail right now, says, I'm going to continue to fight for Sikh sovereignty. I'm going to continue to fight for Khalistan until the day that I die, even though I'm still in Indian prison. Jagtar Singh Hawara, same thing. Jagtar Singh Tara, same thing. Dilawar Singh was a Sikh man who strapped a bomb to himself to kill CM Byanta. Satwant Singh and Byant Singh. Everyone here know Indira Gandhi? Yeah? Give me a thumbs up if you know Indira Gandhi. Okay. Everyone knows Indira Gandhi. The people that assassinated Indira Gandhi, Satwant Singh and Byant Singh, very popular, humorous, and comedic representation. Santa Banta. These guys are just two funny sardars. They do dumb stuff. They're funny. Who are they based on? You've heard some, well, these aren't as popular in our generations. Honestly, they kind of suck. But back then, and in India, these were/are popular. They have funny conversations, they do dumb things. Think about the Three Stooges. And they made a Santa Banta version of that. But who are Santa and Banta? Who are they based off of? The people that put 17 bullets in Indira Gandhi. That's who Santa Banta are based on. The spin on their names is very intentional. When Sanjay Singh Khalsa Pindrawale was leading a movement for Sikh rights, when he's saying that we need to, I'll actually put up a slide of the Anandpur Sahib resolution, but Indira Gandhi needed the people to believe that Sanjay Singh Khalsa Pindrawale hated Hindus. Never mind the fact that he paid for the construction of a mandir in Gurdaspur jail. Not for Sikhs, for Hindus. Never mind that he paid for the costs of Hindus who had their shop burned down in riots. Never mind that. Never mind all of the Hindu women who would come to Sanjay Singh Khalsa Pindrawale saying, this injustice is happening to our family, can you help us? And he'd say yes, and he'd send people. Indira Gandhi had to paint that this man is anti-Hindu. Why? She wants to get re-elected. It doesn't matter what's right. It doesn't matter what's wrong. It doesn't matter who dies. It's about re-election. Mohandas Gandhi screwed over Bhagat Singh, screwed over Sanjay Singh Khalsa Pindrawale. We are seeing patterns in the people that are in power and the people that they are targeting. She's the one that ordered the attack on Darbar Sahib. And according to meetings between her and her superior officers, just months later, she regretted it. She said, this is a move that I don't think I'm going to survive. And the day of justice came when Satwant Singh and Beant Singh, after visiting Darbar Sahib, they saw their holy place of worship desecrated, holes where they're supposed to be sitting and meditating and reading Gurbani. They saw tank holes and bullet holes in that place, and they couldn't bear it. They made a plan, and they assassinated her. So when the Indian government talks about Santa Banta, know that they're talking about Satwant Singh and Beant Singh, who took out this Indira Gandhi, who could not bear the destruction of their place of worship. That's who we're talking about. Also, another fun fact that a lot of people may not have known, quickly after the Indian government desecrated Akal Takht, they tried to rebuild it. And they did rebuild it. They rebuilt it really quickly. And they said, hey, nothing happened. We took away all the bullet holes. Nothing happens. What Sikhs did is they took this Akal Takht and they tore it down and said, we don't need any favors from the Indian government. We don't need you to rebuild our place of worship. Money is not an issue that we have. What we care more about is our sovereignty. What we care more about is our principles. So India, you can see under construction. And they rebuilt it. They were like, nothing happened. And this is still happening today. They are erasing Sikh history. Outside of Darbar Sahib, they found historic tunnels. These tunnels are historic. They go back hundreds of years. They can tell us a lot about Sikh history. But the Indian government wants to tear them down and build living spaces for people. And try to say, oh, this is just for living. This is actually going to serve the people. Never mind the erasure of your history. This was the beginning of when Sikhs started to tear the Akal Takht down and rebuild it themselves. Just a replay of the video. So that tells you a little bit about what that is. So fast forward, like I said, segue. Actually, I kind of want to talk about Akshay, but I think we're running out of time. What we'll do is we'll talk about what's happening today. Jaggi Jor from the UK. A citizen of the UK went to India to get married. He was abducted. They didn't come up and said, "You have committed some crime, we're going to arrest you." They put a bag over his head, they threw him in a van, and later come to find out that it was Indian police. Stripped him of his clothes, tortured him, beat him, and in the prison center, this is where foreign governments get involved. Don't think that this just happens in India. The UK government sends the Indian government pictures and files of his friends and family members visiting parks saying, "We've got eyes on you, dude. You are under threat. We've got eyes on you." Do these people get into the UK without permission? Are these people operating in the UK without permission? No. This is collusion between these governments. Just like the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Jack Dorseys and the Google CEOs, Sundar Pichais, are collaborating with the Indian government to suppress negative news about them, this is how the UK government colludes with the Indian government. He was beaten, he was tortured, he was electrocuted, and on November 10th, he comes, and he's not even able to walk into a courtroom. The police has to carry him in. We're talking about November 10th, 2017. We're not talking about 1984 or 1995. We're talking about 2017. It's 2021 now. He remains in jail. He's had over 160 pre-trial hearings. And what they tell him every time? "Oh, the judge is on leave. Maybe next time." "Oh, the judge is on vacation. Maybe next time." It's been 4 years of this. And he's still in Indian prison. This is UK's Modi, Priti Patel. She failed. She signed the extradition orders for 3 more Sikhs to be extradited to India, where they would be eligible for the death penalty. She failed, fortunately. And this is why I also make the assertion that our intentional silence, the silence of us, the silence of generations before us, has contributed to the genocide that we see today. Us shutting up and being quiet tells the Indian government that you can do stuff like this and you will receive no backlash. Bollywood can come to Punjab, do their video shoots, dance in your fields, but when it comes to defending your land, when it comes to defending your rights, they're going to be silent. Where they're making money, they're going to exploit you. But if they're not making money, then you are nothing to them. So, we're talking about Jaggi Jor in jail right now. August 2nd, 2021, Jagjit Singh Herike is arrested. A woman had desecrated Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And different people had held her accountable for that. The Indian government found that as a way to further harass people like Jagjit Singh. He was picked up at around 3 on July 26th. ਜਦੋਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਰਾਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ 9 ਵਜ ਗਏ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅਲਫ ਨੰਗੀ ਕਰਤਾ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨੰਗੀ ਕਰਤੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਚੱਡੇ ਪਾੜੇ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਮੇਰੀ ਪੁੱਛਗਿੱਛ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ ਉੱਥੇ ਲਿਆ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੇਰੇ ਦੋਸਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰੰਟ ਲਾਇਆ ਛਾਤੀ ਤੇ ਕਰੰਟ ਲਾਇਆ ਕੰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰੰਟ ਲਾਇਆ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੁਣਦੀ ਆ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਦੋਨੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਆ ਮੋਢਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਇੰਟਰੋਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਚ ਕਰਤਾ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੇਰੇ He was tortured for 8 days and police didn't tell his family. So you can imagine when we're talking about the farmers' protests and we're talking about the strongest generation where our parents are posted up at the borders of Delhi, this isn't the first time. This isn't the first time they've seen something like this. Why is it that they have to keep fighting these battles is because we are silent. It's because we can't talk about it. We can't tell our stories. If everyone in this room, if every person knows 10 people, that's 10 people that you can tell about our story. If you are blessed with children one day, you can raise your children to know what the Sikh story is, what the Sikh struggle is, how they are existing in India today.
काफी टाइम तक यही लगी जाता कान में विच आवाज़ां बजदियां ने कि कोई बाहर खड़ा आवाज़ां बज जाता जां टीवी जी बोली जाती है करना उनकी 1000.
This isn't the first time that's happened to him specifically. Why is it? On his profile, you'll see pictures of Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindrali. You'll see pictures of talking about the Sikh struggle. But doing it from India means this. That was August 2nd. So we're at 2002 and we're at August 2nd. Moving up. August 19th. The Indian government, the National Investigation Agency of India, arrests Gurmukh Singh and have charged him with an Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. They were saying he had weapons, and of course, as is often said by India, those weapons were given to him through Pakistan. They go into his room, they search it, they find nothing, and leave. 2 hours later, police comes back into his room with a big duffel bag, walk out of the room, obviously with the same duffel bag, saying, "We recovered these weapons from his room." Hope you guys can read fast. I'm going to go through that. So, they searched his room. They find weapons. They came down with carry bags. They said, we searched his room and we found these. How did they find 3 bags in his room after searching it and finding nothing? Fabricated evidence, planted evidence. It happened all the time here. And it's been outlawed. But in countries like India, August 19, 2021, this is still happening. So continue to ask yourselves, are Sikhs free? That's a picture of him in the lap of Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindrali. Do we see a reason why the Indian government might want to take him out? Just from a few days ago. Ranjit Singh. Indian police goes to the field where he is. They dig a hole where he's sitting. And they put weapons in it. And tell the world that we've recovered these weapons from Ranjit Singh. On November 23rd, there was people saying, "We don't even know where he is. Where'd he go? He's missing. Help us find him." The next day, we find out that he's in Indian police custody, saying, "Asi do hand grenade uton labbeya." We found 2 hand grenades from him. He was planning an attack. He's a terrorist. So, due to these false allegations, due to it being a Sikh that did this, or that is accused of doing this, he's probably going to be in jail a long time. So if this happened on November 23rd of 2021, and we're sitting here today at December 3rd, 2021, did this genocide ever end for us? Has it ever ended for us? The oppressor can arrest you, torture you, and even kill you, and the perpetrators of said crimes will be protected under Indian law. The Pandey brothers, Google them, Pandey. Two Hindu gentlemen hijack a plane because Indira Gandhi is in jail. Those two brothers are rewarded with positions in Indian government. They are ministers of Indian government. Now, if Sikhs even put a flag on an empty flagpole at the Red Fort, somehow they're terrorists. But people that can hijack a plane become ministers. Is there not a double standard for Sikhs in India, even today? And we're supposed to call that our home. When we are being exploited, when our water is being robbed, when we are being used for our bravery. That brings me to the final point. In 1986, when the Sikh nation declared Khalistan, I'll actually go to this post after I show you some footage. Must be around here somewhere. It's a reel, actually. Let me get to the reels. But it's actual footage of how many people were in front of the Darbar Sahib declaring separation from India. Are they all terrorists? Does that seem like people that you can gather all willy-nilly? Saying, hey, we're having a gathering, come through. That is hundreds and thousands of people that are there saying that you attacked the very place that we are sitting on. And we are no longer a part of you. In fact, this decision was made before any of us, most likely, were even born. That Sikhs are not a part of India. Sikhs are not Indians. These decisions were made for us. And if you look at the facts even today, the term Khalistan is painted as terroristic. It was always about issues. It was always about waters. It was always about protections. If you read in it, it's the extermination of caste-based acceptances to jobs. They're saying certain amount of jobs are for this caste, certain amount of jobs are for this caste, certain amount of jobs are for this caste. The Anandpur Sahib resolution, where Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindrawale was advocating for, said there should be none of that. Everyone should be able to equally get jobs, regardless of caste. So it's talking about equality, it's talking about financial protections, it's talking about religious safeguarding. And instead of addressing it for what it is, the government of the time, and even today, continues to paint him as a terrorist. This is footage from not too long ago. Who are these people that are wearing this terrorist shirt? Why is he remembered? This is what the Indian government from September 2021 wants you to believe. That tells you that you are more of a threat to the Indian government that we can give ourselves credit for. I'll end it with this last post. This is when the Sikh nation declared separation from India. When Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindrawale mounted the strongest opposition, why did the Sidhu Moosewale and the Sirse and the Badals and the Captain Amrinder Singhs of this time period not come up? Because we had the right people in charge. He said, if a police officer is harassing you and is unjustly asserting his authority over you, you tell me his badge number and you let me know. I'll take care of it. He set up a parallel structure to the Indian government, but did it in the correct way. Did it based on justice. That's why he was able to gather the support that he did. And the Indian government wants you to believe he's a terrorist. I'm not sure if I lost internet connection. Okay, let me zoom in. Said he mounted the opposition. He's quoted as saying, "We don't want to break India apart. We're not asking for Khalistan. Our fight is for equal rights. But if Khalistan is offered, we will accept." But if the Indian government attacks Darbar Sahib, India themselves will be laying the foundation for Khalistan. You all sitting in this room, anybody that talks about a Sikh genocide is known as a terrorist to the Indian government. Are we terrorists for advocating for our rights? Are we terrorists for telling our stories? Are we terrorists for saying that mothers that don't have their sons and husbands and fathers back because they were killed by the Indian government, those people deserve justice? Are we terrorists for that? The Indian government themselves, by attacking Darbar Sahib, will be laying the foundation for Khalistan. Go again. Sure, if it just got randomly slow. Anyways, so I'll skip whatever that picture was since it doesn't want to show up. Months before, so it includes the text. Months before the attack on Darbar Sahib, the Indian government was setting up commandos all around the Darbar Sahib complex. So when they tell you that the attack, Operation Blue Star, was a spontaneous attack, why are you then setting up commandos months before? Why is there a replica of Darbar Sahib found in Uttar Pradesh where the Indian government has been practicing drills on how to invade for 2 years before? This plan was not made because of terrorists. This plan was not made because of secession. This plan was not made because of Samjanel Singh Khalsa Pindrawale. This plan was made to deliver a blow to the Indian government. A blow that ended up taking the life of Indira Gandhi herself. 6. Inside the complex, media is sent out. They're saying, are you going to report on what we're doing here at Darbar Sahib? You will be put on a bus or on a train and you'll be sent out of Punjab. What is the Indian government trying to hide? So, after the Indian government crosses, for whatever reason this is not showing up, there's nothing left. You know how they say there's a line in the sand? After that attack, we may have forgotten because we don't go there that often, or we're busy with school here, or we don't talk about it. But Darbar Sahib, after you attack Darbar Sahib, there's no line left to cross. You've crossed all lines. You've blew the line off the sand and saying, we will do what we want, and you do what you're going to do about it. So, in the footage that I showed you, it wasn't just a few people that came and said, we don't want to be part of India anymore. It was hundreds and thousands, if not 1 million people that came and said, we are not a part of India anymore. And this was in '86. And judging by the Ranjit Singhs and Gurmukh Singhs and Jagtar Singh Jals of today who remain in Indian jail, we didn't even talk about Bapu Sura Singh, an 88-year-old man who is on a hunger strike to release Sikh political prisoners who have already served their prison sentences but remain in Indian prisons. He's on a hunger strike to release them. What does the Indian government do? Instead of letting him fight his hunger strike, they arrest him, they bring him to the hospital, they stitch a force-feeding tube to his nose, And he's being force-fed. Even today, December 3rd, 2021, he's being force-fed by the Indian government. He's not officially arrested, but there is a plainclothes officer. If you go to Dayanand Medical Facility Hospital in Ludhiana, you will see him there. They will not let you visit him. They won't even let his family visit him very much. But it's happening today. So I ask you again. We'll close out here and we'll open it up for any questions. When Sikhs separated from India in 1986, this was a decision made for us. And their words and their actions remain true even today. Their words, their actions could have saved us hundreds and thousands of lives and could have saved us the farmer bills. It could have saved us the disintegration of Punjab. It could have saved us from a lot. So I will end with the Sikh genocide did not happen in 1984. The Sikh genocide did not happen in 1995. It's still happening today. So let's talk to more people about it. Forget telling the world about it, because the world doesn't care. You're going to tell people on Instagram, you're going to tell people on Twitter, well, they're going to shut your voice out. It's word of mouth is all you have. You have your families, you have your friends, you have your associates. Tell them about how Sikhs are still an oppressed community, how they are still dying, how the Indian government is still attempting to trample them. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Should we open it up for questions? Any questions from anyone? I won't put you guys on the spot. I can't see anything. Can we turn the lights on? Any questions regarding anything? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Like the recent news of MS Sirsa joining the BJP committee, I think like how betrayal from our own people is just such a big part of the ongoing genocide.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
That's an excellent question. Actually, something I forgot to talk about. Sirsa joins the BJP. Just 2 months ago, he was saying that Narendra Modi is like Aurangzeb. That this is the worst thing to ever happen to India. And 2 months later, he joins his party. So there are betrayals happening, but I think we need to look at it a layer beyond the betrayals. These people are coming into power. I once heard a story from a Kathakar in Ludhiana. He said that the Jathedar of Akal Takht Sahib is, he wants to remain the Jathedar. He was actually a good Jathedar. He wants to remain the leader of the Sikh nation. But the Indian government doesn't want him there. So they said, either you resign yourself, or there's a woman standing right there, and she is going to put allegations on you that you tried to harass her, that you did XYZ to her, and we're going to tell the public that you did that. So not only are you going to be forced to resign, you will be publicly shamed, and then you will resign. So you might as well do it the easy way. So he resigned. This is the story of so many people. Do you think a Badal exists if the Indian government doesn't exist? Where were these Badals? Where were these people when Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindrawale was around? They existed. They didn't have a voice back then because they knew if we ever try to do something or take a step like this, that there will be repercussions. So we should shut up. And that's exactly what they did. So a Sirsa can join BJP now because he knows there's no repercussions. The Indian government controls the media, and let's hypothetically say that they told him, Sirsa, either you're going to go to jail or you're going to join our party. We're talking about a millionaire. Yeah, has a shady past. Yeah, he's a snake. Yeah, he's a traitor. But given the choice between jail and joining this party, he's a millionaire. He's not going to say, I'm going to jail. He's going to join the party. Sidhu Moosewala. Today I was reading a report about how he has so many cases pending against him for weapons charges. And what does he do? He joins the Congress. So now when you become part of the elites in India, in Punjab, all these cases are wiped off. So whether or not these people willingly join or they're put in a place to join, this is all happening, if you take a step back, because the Indian government perpetuates this. Why are there farmer bills? Why are there politicians still protected in India? Why are the Amitabh Bachchan still free? Why are there weapons cases against Sidhu Moosewala, who has a picture on his tractor of Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindranwale, but he dare not say anything, because if he goes to India where he needs to go, where his family is, they can arrest him and put him in jail. And as we see from a Jaggi Jol, what's that going to mean? We raise our voices, what's that going to do? We know that Facebook is censoring us. We know that Instagram is censoring us. We know that Twitter is censoring us. We know they're intentionally silencing us. But what can we do? We're a small community. So if a Sidhu Moosewala is put in jail, you could say, hey, get him out of jail. He didn't do anything wrong. Jaggi Jol is still in jail. What are you going to do? He knows the repercussions of that. Not excusing any of his actions. It's a cowardly move. But think 2 steps back. Why are they doing these things? It seems hard for me to believe that he would join a party of the Indira Gandhi who desecrated Darbar Sahib, which he talks about in his songs regularly. It's hard for me to believe that he would willingly join that. But are there external pressures? Yes. And there always will be in an Indian-occupied Punjab. Captain Amrinder Singh is the leader of Congress, which is the party that Sidhu Moosewala joined. He was the leader. He had to go out and protest in front of Parliament to even get heard by Modi. To even tell Modi that these laws are going to hurt the people from my region, he had to go out there and protest to even get him to listen. How much power does he have? He has no power. The people of Punjab have power, but they don't have a leader like Sanjanal Singh Khalsa Pindranwale. They don't have that kind of figure to put them on a platform to say this is wrong and we're going to do something about it. Because they're going to be painted as terrorists in India, and they're going to be painted as terrorists in the rest of the world. And what are we going to know? We're going to know what we hear on CNN. We're going to know what we hear on Fox. We're going to know what we hear on MSNBC. And what are those news anchors and those news media are going to get their news from the Indian government. So our story will essentially never be told unless we tell it. And we don't have to tell everyone. We just have to tell ourselves. So going back to your question about Sirsa, he's given these platforms because the Indian government, I think, has created these situations. There's no reason for that Jathedar to have resigned, but he was forced to resign. I don't see a Sirsa joining the very party which he bashed months ago as being some sort of traitor. I'll go to the extent of saying even the Badals don't become who they become unless they have a vested interest in killing the Sikhs of Punjab and ruining Punjab. The people that want to say that Sant Pindranwale didn't do anything wrong, the Deep Sidhus of the world, those people are told in the Indian media as terrorists. Just for saying, Ravi Singh Khalsa, why is he known as a terrorist in India? Because he said Sant Pindranwale didn't do anything wrong. Lions don't surrender. You come up into our place of worship and you try to attack us and you expect us to roll over? That's not who we are. We go in front of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, there's weapons. Why? Because we were taught never to hurt anyone, but never to fear anyone. And that is the principles that he lived by. So now, even saying that he didn't do anything wrong gives you the title of a terrorist in India. And that tells us a little bit about how Sikhs exist in India. And Sirsas and Sidhus and captains and Badals, all these people will cease to exist once there is a grassroots movement in Punjab, once there is a Punjabi political party that is Punjab-centric, that is saying we are going to advocate for those rights. I guarantee you, none of these people can talk about the water of Punjab. None of these people can advocate for the water of Punjab. Why? Because the Indian government exploits that. And the moment you say that this is the hill that I'm going to die on, you will be known as a terrorist, you'll be thrown in jail, and you might be killed. You might be in jail indefinitely. So there are so many different factors, so many different pressures that exist for people, for Sikhs that live in India, that it is now our job to talk about them. Any other questions? Anything? Yeah.
The current leaders of Palestine, if we do go with Palestine for a legal violation.
Who would be?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know there's like counter arguments and debates that the leaders that are there that uphold if Palestine was made, and that they're wrong themselves. And they wouldn't read Palestine in the right direction, and it would be decimated in like the years upcoming, and they wouldn't go anywhere.
That's a great question. We're talking about a different country. Who would run it? And what I would say to that is, when countries are formed, there is no set form of government. There is a way that people know, Sikhs especially know, that dying on our feet is better than living on our knees. In India, a Sikh must live on his or her knees to exist. If you do not roll over, you die. We have a Jagmeet Singh that's about to be a Prime Minister of Canada, being a second generation in Canada. And hell, we can't find someone from Punjab to run Punjab. Why? It's all because of Indian occupation. India is occupying our land. If we can have people that become mayors, approaching governors, that can become prime ministers, that are different positions all over the world, these are arguments that India has continually placed on Sikhs to try to pull them down. If we can have politicians all over the world, why can't we have them in India? These things will come up as they go. How it's going to run, what it's going to look like, what the economy is going to be. All those things aside, ask yourself, are you okay being subservient? Are you okay being a second-class citizen? If the answer is yes, you're good to go in India. If the answer is no, then you will sort out the details later and say, I need to figure out what this looks like. I can throw to you, anyone here, a million different proposals of what it would look like. Who am I? I'm a no one. But what I do know is that it can run. Based on the experiences, based on the figures that we have outside of India, we know that this can run. In 1800s, when Maharaja Ranjit Singh was in charge of Sikh Raj, we don't like to call it Khalistan, but it was a Sikh kingdom. We can call it Khalistan if you want. In that Khalistan, we had a literacy rate in the 1860s that matched the British. And the British were able to colonize the rest of India hundreds of years before they were able to colonize Punjab. Why is that? Because Punjab clearly can run. It knows what it's doing. It has an economy. It has waters. It has hard workers. It has bravery. It has a heritage. It has history. It has soldiers. It has a constitution. It has currency. It has everything. Regardless of all that, I need to know that if my dad or my brother or I go out and I get killed, my killer will be held accountable. And I can't say that in India right now. And that means I am living as a second-class citizen. That means I am subservient to the Indian government. So, regardless of all those different factors, how would it run? These are arguments that India keeps throwing at us. Oh, how would you run? You don't have any politicians. Oh, you have a Badal in charge. Are you going to make Badal in charge of Khalistan? There's so many different proposals. I guarantee you, a Badal will whip himself into shape if he knows that he's not safe if he does the wrong things. He will whip himself into shape. So many people will sort themselves out. The Sirse, the Badals, the captains, all these different traitors. Every other day, the Indian government tells us we have a traitor in ourselves. Now Deep Sidhu is a traitor. Now Lakha Sadhan is a traitor. Now Aman Singh is a traitor. Now XYZ is a traitor. Why is it that we can only find traitors within our community, but the community that is very directly killing us, that is very directly, invested in our genocide, we never point the finger at them? Everyone's talking about Sirsa. Yeah, talk about Sirsa. There's going to be turban-wearing snakes out there. But do we ever ask ourselves, who is feeding that snake? Who is putting that snake on the pedestal? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. So circling back to who will run it, I don't have the answer for you. But I do know whoever will run it, it will be better than a life on my knees. It will be better than a Sikh not being free. So that is typically my response to anything like that. Great question, though. Anyone else? We can also close it out at 6:30. I don't have a voice anymore. If there's any questions, guys, I know everyone's a little shy. It's a small group. Yes, again, go ahead.
Like going off to the Palestine topic, I've heard a lot of people say, like, at the farmers' protest rallies, like, they bring out like Palestine flags, and they kind of like protest for that, and they kind of say like, oh well, if all farmers are like different religions, they're all mixed, then why are you protesting for Palestine there? Do you think that's like a valid argument, or like it's not? What would be the counter to that?
Yeah, one thing I will clarify. The farmers' protest is not a Khalistan protest. People that have Khalistan flags at farmers' protests are also not wrong, though. This is not something new that's happened to Sikhs. This is not new legislation. If you can pick up a Jaswant Singh Kanada and tell the Canadian government that we don't have him, shoot him twice and throw him in a canal, you can do that to hundreds and thousands of other Sikhs. This is not something Sikhs have gone through for the first time. This is not oppression that they have witnessed for the first time. So when farmer bills come up, Modi is just a new prime minister. It's just a different face. The Indian agenda has always been exploit Punjab, exploit the people, exploit the resources. But if they advocate for themselves, if they ask, hey, why do I have to dig 400 feet underground this year to find water? Then stop them from asking that question and call them a terrorist. This is how the Indian government operates. So when farmer bills come into existence and they say, okay, we've taken your water, we've killed a generation of your people, all of us are in these countries today because our parents most likely have come out of India on political asylum. What that means is, I am not safe where I am from. I'm a refugee. I think a lot of us forget that. A lot of Sikhs that are in Canada or Australia or the UK or the US come out on political asylum visas because they are not safe in India, and they are very blatantly and openly and overtly telling the government that we are not safe where we are from. So we took your water, we killed off a generation. The people that have killed you are now in positions of power. Those people are protected. KP Gills are super cops. Amitabh Bachchans are millionaires. Sajjan Kumars are totally fine. They're appointed as permanent members of Congress just this year. Those people are totally fine. Now we're going to come after your land. We're going to take the one thing that you pride yourselves on, the one way, even though farmer suicides are the worst in the world, even though you're barely making it, most likely in 5 to 10 years, you could have killed yourself anyways. But we're going to take that from you as well. This is why Khalistan comes up in these topics. This is not the first time that Sikhs have faced these odds. This is not the first time that Sikhs have said, this is a very clear sign of subservience. India was able to take over Kashmir. This just happened. They shut down their internet for a year. Kashmiris were not able to bid for the very land that they're living on. Other people bid on the land. Kashmiris couldn't bid on it because they didn't have internet. They didn't have access to that. So the houses they were on were bought by people from the foreign. And the Indian government said, now these people are less. Nationality to India is now religious based. Modi is very openly and overtly trying to convert India into a Hindu nation. But I ask everyone again, it's Modi today. It was Beanta yesterday. It was Indira Gandhi the day before. It was Nehru the day before. It was Mohandas Gandhi the day before. This has been happening with Sikhs for decades. This is not a Modi problem. This is not an exclusive to Modi problem. This has been happening for decades. This has been happening for a long time. And the sentiment of Khalistan will always come up in times of oppression, because the people are reminded that we are under threat. Why is the world saying that this was a victory for Punjab over Modi? The world is saying that. There were farmers from all over India, but they're not going to stay here. A lot of them came and they left. A lot of people didn't come at all. Why was it Sikhs that had to face barricades and tear gas and water cannons and all these people coming? So an overwhelming majority of the people there were Sikh. That's not saying that the farmers' protest was a Sikh-only issue, but an overwhelming majority, they started their day by doing ardas and japji sahib, and they ended their day by doing another ardas. This was a Sikh-dominated protest. So how are you going to stop a Sikh who has had his dad killed by the Indian government from saying that secession is the only way that I can exist safely? Now Modi has come after my land, but yesterday I was fighting a court case. And the court threw it out. I was trying to fight for justice for my dad, for my brother, for my son. Khalistan will always come out in these times because Sikhs are reminded of what their position is in India. So the farmers' protest is not a Khalistan protest. The water of Punjab, if there is going to be any sort of action on that, that's not a Khalistan protest. Join all of those together, and you're talking about issues that comprise of the issue of Khalistan. Think about it as various factors. Khalistan is not a terroristic, we hate India and we're going to break it apart. We're just saying we want to exist safely. We don't want our people killed. If someone is advocating for our equality, we don't want to die in that. And we will fight you. And we will do whatever it takes, even if it means giving up our lives, to fight you on that. And that's what they have done. So, circling back, I think I've done this a couple times now, but this is why it will always come up. Farmer bills themselves are not a Khalistan issue. They're included though. Read the Anandpur Sahib resolution. Sanjay Nelson Khalsa Pindramwale, Sardar Kapoor Singh, who wrote the Anandpur Sahib resolution, his biggest proponent was Sant Pindramwale. And in that resolution says, the equipment of farmers, the land thereon should be exempt of tax, the equipment thereon should be exempt of tax. There needs to be more efforts by the government to increase their prosperity, because that's all that our land is. That's what the Anandpur Sahib resolution was. So these were talked about in the 80s. So fast forward to 2021, you're talking about the same things. Modi repealed them now. How do we know a version of them won't come after the elections next year? We don't know that. We can't say that. He didn't consult with any of the farmer unions before making these bills. He didn't consult even his own cabinet members before repealing them. We don't know that they won't come back, regardless of if they come back or not. Sikh sovereignty will always come up in these times, because Sikhs do not roll over. It takes a certain type of person to say. A reporter was asking a Singh there, an old Singh, probably 70s, 80s. He's like, the government is coming, because the government was trying to scare them. The government is coming. They're going to eliminate you guys. He's like, that's fine. I'm going to sit here. They can kill me. It takes a different type of person to have that mentality. And this is the heritage and the history that Sikhs come from. You can't make a Sikh live a subservient life. These are people that have had their own rule twice in history. Under Banda Singh Bahadur, under Maharaja Ranjit Singh. These are people that have prospered. These are people that have had high literacy rates and have had booming economies. And now you're trying to tell them, no, you're subject to an India where there's farmer suicides and crippling debts? Sovereignty will always come up in protests like this. So instead of saying, this is not your protest, this is this protest, I've always said, I welcome everyone. You have a space in this protest. You bring a pain into this that I can't talk about. Why was Sant Pindrawale on the tractors of so many farmers? He's known as a terrorist to India. He's known as a Khalistani terrorist to India. Why was he on so many tractors? People are saying, we live according to what you were talking about. And he lived according to what Gurbani was talking about. That's the reason that people are talking about this today. And that's the reason that sovereignty, Khalistan, freedom, all those things will always come up. It's not because of Pakistan. It's not because Sikhs are terrorists. It's not because they want to break India apart. It's because they want to be free. They want to be sovereign. and they want to be equal. The RSS still understands Sikh to be a sect of Hinduism.